Today, when people think of personal computers, they think about things such as desktops and laptops and even tablets. But few people realize that they can owe the term personal computer all to really one device, the IBM personal computer. Back in the late 1970s, IBM wasn't in the personal computer industry. There were several other companies that were, such as Apple and Tandy, and they had been doing it for several years and were very successful. But the number one computer manufacturer in the United States, IBM, didn't even have a personal computer yet. IBM realized this need and was desperate to get into this industry. IBM was so desperate that they had even thought about buying the video game producer Atari to try to use their first early line of computers. Back in the mid-1980s, IBM got together and did a study. The study determined that IBM would be unable to internally build a PC profitably. On top of that, the average time it took IBM to build a computer was 4 to 5 years. IBM was already late in the game, and they knew that if they needed to build one, they needed to build one as soon as possible. So IBM came up with a secret plan. The plan was called Project Chess. The main goal of Project Chess was to design a computer. The computer was codenamed Acorn. The Acorn, as it was called, was built in a facility in Boca Raton, Florida, and led by a man named William C. Lowe at an IBM research facility. It was designed in about a year. The reason it was built in a year instead of the usual 4 to 5 years was because IBM tried an entirely different method called open architecture. That was where IBM actually used other software and other hardware from other manufacturers and put it all together into one unit. This made the Acorn not only cheaper but faster to build. For the software side, IBM met with the head of Microsoft, Bill Gates, and asked with him to design an OS for their new PC. Bill Gates didn't even have an operating system at the time, so he actually bought one from another manufacturer in Seattle called DOS and created his own version called MS-DOS, which was put into this Acorn. The Acorn was released in August 12th, 1981. It was not called the Acorn, obviously. It was actually called the IBM Personal Computer 5150. At the time, it was considered a very fast computer. It had a 4.77 megahertz Intel microprocessor. It came with 16 kilobits of memory, which could be expanded up to 256. It came with one or two 160K floppy disk drives or an optional color monitor. The starting price at the time was $1,565, which today would be round about $4,000. Even with that price, it was still at the time the lowest priced IBM computer to date. In order to boost sales, IBM went a different route than it normally did. Back in the past, IBM actually used their own personal salesmen to meet with companies and corporations and personal people to sell their products. The reason was that IBM's products were usually fairly expensive, ranging from $10,000 to $50,000. And IBM realized that to sell this more profitably, they needed to actually sell it to distributors. So this was the actually first device that IBM produced that was distributed by actual distributors and not by IBM itself. They used companies such as Sears and Computerland to sell their computers. Their base estimate for initial sales was going to be 250,000 units, but within a few years they had already sold over 750,000 units. The computer was so popular that it is now, that's the reason why people call a PC, is because of this device. It was so popular that Time magazine even named this device the 1982 Man of the Year. This device was designed in 1981, like I said, which was the year I was born. And this is my project over the IBM Personal Computer 5150. Thank you.